Okay, so welcome back to Finding Your Way with Lori and Tonya. We are super excited you are back. If you are a returning listener, and then if you're new, listen, we believe wholeheartedly that you have found us for a reason and that you are supposed to be here. So welcome. This is kind of our series on really creating the life of your dreams. And so we're talking about taking a life inventory. We're talking about what that really looks like, and setting some parameters and goals around that, and then how to achieve those. So last episode, we talked about the 8 essential areas of life, and we went through and talked about those areas, and we asked you to rate those areas on a scale of 1 to 10. And then we talked about, the surprise of when Lori and I first did this, that for me, there was nothing. I was really honest. We were really honest in this rating, but for me, there was nothing above a 3. And then how she and I do this exercise about every 6 months, and definitely at the end of every year, we get together and do it together, kind of kicking off our new year. And we do a workshop for people as well, to kind of do that towards November, December, to kind of get everybody going. And so we've talked about, now that we know where we are, and we've really been honest about it, what does a 10 look like, right, Lori?
Yeah, so the importance is you've identified something. So you've assessed where you are. Well, if you just stop there, you'd feel a little bit lousy if you were like we were, right? Because you're like, well, darn, I've just looked at my life and it didn't look all that great, or that's where we were years ago. So you have to have those next steps. And so the fun part is then going, okay, I see where there's opportunity for improvement in certain areas of my life. And so then this next step is really where you get to dream and think about, okay, if I was knocking this thing out of the park, if I was knocking my finances out, if I was knocking my health and wellness out, like what would that look like for me? And I think when we talked last week, we shared that those dreams change over time. And so like initially, my mind was so limited that I couldn't even dream big, like, personal joy and fun. I think I shared that, my dream at that time, my getting to a 10 was that I laugh out loud at least once a week. And I think they say what children laugh like 600 times a day. And I was just dreaming to laugh once a week, but that's where I was at the time. And so it's taking where you are and going, okay, well, if I could dream about this. And what we want to encourage you to do is truly dream. So think about being a child and being free and not feeling those restrictions of time and money and effort and all of that, but really going, what do I really want? What do I want in this area of my life? And not get so hung up on how you're going to get it, but really think about what would bring you the most joy in that area.
Absolutely. And it's getting really clear on that. And so, for us, we were at a weekend 3-day retreat, right? So we sat down and it took me like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent an hour on looking at each area and writing. And it was hard because, again, what a 10 was then was probably a 4 for me now, right? But it was a 10 then, and then when I accomplished it, my next 10, and then what makes it even a better 10. So every time we do this, we grow, and so that 10 changes. But we actually sat down as a group, and everybody took their paper, and we went off to the side and really focused and said, okay, if we looked at finances, what does a 10 look like? And it wasn't just I have $100,000. Like, we got really clear. Like, so a 10 for me looked like my house paid for, my cars paid for, being able to purchase a new car for each of my boys when they turn 16. It looked like savings in the bank. It looked like a little nest egg. Everybody says you have to have that 3 months in case you lost your job. It looked like some investment money. It looked like an investment property. It looked like a beach house. I wrote it all down, and not just a beach house, but a cute, quaint cottage, oceanfront. Like, I really got clear on, I dreamed for the first time in a long time. I dreamed, and I wrote it all down, and I wrote it like I was just seeing it in my mind. And it was just like vomited in my dreams. I just wrote them and wrote them and wrote them. And I thought, I started off going, well, I mean, I can't really have that. It started off being like a little cottage. And then it was like, well, hell, I want to be like, I want to invite my whole family at one time. I want to have 6 bedrooms. I wanted to, but it started off because all I could think of is, gosh, how would I really afford that? Well, but when I let loose and went, it's not about the how, it's about the what. What do I want? Honestly, the how is not up to me. The how is up to God. It's up to the universe, but what would make this a 10 for me? And I just let the hows go, and I dreamed. And it was the first time I'd done that in probably since I was a kid. And it just was fun. When I finally loosened up enough to do it, it was fun.
Mm-hmm. And so it is difficult though, because we don't do it that often as adults. We don't allow ourselves the freedom to take the restrictions off of ourselves. And so we're giving y'all that permission right now to do that, right? Because, you'll refine it later. I mean, but like Tonya said, it's just almost like just transferring it paper. Just anything you could think of that comes to mind, and you can go back and narrow that down later if you want to. But what we're asking you to do is not to call yourself out, not to judge yourself on what you want. Like, I know wanting something really big and then judging yourself, well, I don't really need that. I'm grateful for what I have. And yes, you are, but that's not the place for this. This exercise really is sort of letting it all go and just dreaming, just putting your dreams in writing. And some little tools to get you there if it's uncomfortable at first is to, when you're looking at each of those areas of your life, ask the question, what's working well? Like in health and wellness, maybe I score a 5. What I'm doing really well? Well, I've got a morning routine, and I've got meditation practice, and I've got all these things. These are good things. But what's not working? And like really identify those things. And sometimes when you see and get real honest with yourself on what's working in an area and what's not working, it helps somehow to loosen up those things in your mind so that you can think a little bit bigger and broader, because all it is actions you're either taking now or you're not taking. And so, there's not really any reason to restrict what it could be, right?
And so great word, restrict, limit, no restrictions. It doesn't matter how old the kids are, right? Oh, well, I can't move to the beach until they're out of high school because they won't want to move. None of that, right? That is not about that. So no restrictions on whatever your kids or family or whatever your job. My job doesn't allow me to work remote, so I can't have that. Yes, you can. You just got to want it, and you got to dream it, and you got to get really clear. And then you start taking some steps, and it will come. And we are perfect examples. And in some podcasts close, the next few months, we'll talk about the things that we have created for ourselves based on using this tool, the things that we're talking about in this series, and how it works, and how honestly things have fallen out of the sky for us. Just because we've written them down, just because we've said them out loud, just because we've dreamed and we sat down together and dreamed big and got bigger. So we know it works. This is not just us saying, hey, here's a tool, but it may or may not work. If you work it, we promise you this works.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about visualization before. It's really just creating a vision for yourself. And I know, as Tonya and I have gone through this several times now, maybe at first one of our big dreams was to have a beachfront house. But then if you really start thinking about it, it's like, well, maybe I don't want that, but maybe I want access to one, right? I want access to one when I want it. But I don't want to have to deal with the cleaning and the bug guy and all the things you have to do for a beach house, right? And so it is, that's what I mean by tailoring it and making it fit and getting even more crystal clear eventually. But right now, this step is just sort of dumping it all out and dreaming as big as you can dream.
And visualize. So sit down when you're writing and just see it in your mind and start feeling it. And say it is the beach house, right? So, and that came from a friend of ours who had said forever that she wanted this beach house. She wanted this open oceanfront house. And she couldn't figure out how it was going to happen, like this $1 million oceanfront house. And she'd written it as her goals, and she had dreamed about it, and she'd visualized it, and she'd done affirmations around it. And all of a sudden she looked up one day and she was at the beach with her family. And I don't remember if it was one of her relatives who had bought the house, or somebody had bought this house that now she and her family could use anytime they wanted. And so she looked around and she was like, well, damn, I got my beach house. I just didn't realize I had gotten it.
Right.
And then it was easier because there was no maintenance. There was no having to worry about, do I rent it or does it sit empty? There was none of that, but she got all the joy and the use of it anytime she wanted for free. So don't worry about how it's going to come to you, right? So if she had worried about, well, it's going to be $1 million and I'm never going to make that kind of money, she didn't. She just dreamed, and it came in a different package, but it's still what she wanted. And she was sitting there with her feet up on the rail, drinking a drink, and thought, oh my God, this is it. Like, I didn't realize, but this is it. So don't worry about the house. You never know how it will present itself, but that's with a visualization, because she had visualized that exact moment. And then she went, oh my gosh, I feel like I have deja vu. I've been here before. She had in her dream.
Yeah. And so we talk about all the time how you need to put some feeling behind it. So like when Tonya was describing her beach, you heard her say, I want a beach house. And then she kept talking. And it was like, well, I want a cozy little cottage on the ocean front so that I can walk off the deck and go straight to the ocean and put my feet in the sand. And like, it's even thinking about it like that, like, how's it going to make you feel to have that dream? And that just creates even more momentum around that vision. And it does something inside of you where you remember what you're striving for, right? Because you've got feeling behind it, and it excites you, and it makes you excited to dream about those things and to see how they're going to come true, right?
Absolutely. So last episode, we hope that you did your wheel of life, your 8 essential areas, and you rated yourself. And then you wrote down, now we're asking you to really write down what a 10 is for yourself. So first part's done. This is the fun part. What does a 10 look like? You're going to visualize it. You're going to write it down in your journal or in a notebook. And then we're going to talk about how do we get there. So next episode, we're going to talk about how do we get from this made up 10 to a real 10. Yeah. All right. So listen, join us next time. We're going to walk you through some steps. We're super excited and can't wait to hear what you guys have come up with. Thanks. We'll see you next week.